What would you do if your own family treated you like a stranger at your sister's wedding? Meet Emily, who arrived at a stunning Vermont lakeside resort, ready to celebrate her sister Ashley's big day. But a shocking discovery at the guest list. A seat in the hallway by the coat check unravels a painful truth about her place in the family. What secret lies behind this cruel oversight, and how will Emily face it? If you're hooked on this family drama, hit like, subscribe, and keep watching to uncover the full story. My name is Emily, and this is the story of the day. I realized I was never truly part of my own family. I arrived at my sister Ashley's wedding with a simple plan to celebrate, pose for a few photos, and slip into the role of the supportive older sister as I always had. The wedding unfolded at a lakeside resort in Vermont, its gardens bursting with flowers and its grand banquet halls crowned with towering glass ceilings. As my car rolled to a stop at the entrance, a staff member in a crisp black suit opened my door. I drew a deep breath, smoothed the wine-red dress, the only one I thought fit the occasion, and stepped out with a practiced smile. I wasn't here to steal the spotlight. This was Ashley's day, and I'd long accepted I wasn't the cherished daughter, but I hadn't braced for the sting of their indifference. Inside the main hall, a receptionist greeted me, her smile bright but fleeting. "Your name, Emily Evans," I murmured. Her expression flickered. Her manicured fingers skimmed the guest list, pausing abruptly. She glanced up, her eyes tightening. "Right. You're seated in the hallway area." I blinked. "The hallway." Near the coat check, she said, her tone overly casual. I glanced at the seating chart. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Evans, held places at the head table. Ashley's friends and her husband's colleagues sat beneath the glittering chandeliers. My name wasn't on there, I said, steadying my voice. Could there be a mistake? Her smile tightened, less warm now. "No mistake. That's your assigned spot." A dull ache bloomed in my chest. I told myself it was a logistical oversight, a last-minute shuffle, but then I saw my mother Linda beside Ashley fussing over her veil. They laughed, their joy effortless, as if I didn't exist. I approached, keeping my tone even. "Mom, can we talk for a moment?" Linda didn't glance my way. "Not now, Emily. We're busy." "Just a second," I pressed. She sighed, visibly irritated, and stepped aside. Ashley watched me, her smile sharp, devoid of warmth. "I've been seated in the hallway," I said. My mother shrugged as if it were trivial. "We prioritized close family." My hands curled into fists. "I am family." She gave a thin, cutting laugh. "Don't make a scene." Emily Ashley's voice slid in, honeyed but cold. "It's probably just a mix-up. Weddings are chaotic." Her eyes gleamed with something else entirely. I looked to my mother, searching for a trace of doubt, but she only sighed. "Don't spoil your sister's day. You should be thankful you're here." Thankful. The word lodged in my throat, heavy and bitter. Thankful for being relegated to the sidelines of my own family, for a seat by the coat rack. Before I could speak, my father, Charles, approached, his voice low, dismissive. "It's just a chair." "Sweetheart." "Let it go." I stood frozen. The anger wasn't loud or fiery. It was quiet, deep, a slow burning realization. I forced a hollow smile and turned away. They expected me to swallow it as always. Not this time. My heels clicked softly on the marble floor as I left the hall. The air in the corridor carried the scent of silk and roses, but something else lingered, my own displacement. In my hand, the place card read, "Emily Evans, Table H, Hallway Area." The elegant script felt like a quiet insult. I'd hoped just this once they'd see me as one of them. They never had. A faint click sounded behind me. The hall door opened. "Emily." Ashley's voice was light, almost playful, but it stopped me cold. I turned. She stood there, arms crossed her veil, catching the breeze, her flawless makeup framing a smile that held no kindness. "Upset about the seating?" she asked, her tone devoid of care. I gave a dry laugh. "Not upset. Disappointed." She tilted her head, her eyes glinting with amusement. "You're always so fragile. It's just a seat." "Emily, who cares?" I bit my cheek, keeping my voice steady. "It's not the seat. It's how this family treats me. It's always been this way." She shrugged. And yet here you are in your pretty dress, still chasing their approval. She stepped closer, her voice a whisper, meant only for me. It's pathetic, Emily. I met her gaze unflinching. No, Ashley. What's pathetic is needing to diminish someone else to feel wanted. That made her pause for a second, but then, as if it meant nothing, Ashley laughed. You really know how to kill the mood like always. Footsteps approached behind her. It was Mom Linda with a tense expression like she'd been dragged away from the party to handle something trivial. I heard there's some drama out here, she asked, eyes on Ashley, barely glancing at me. I took a breath, telling myself I deserved an explanation. Mom, I was seated in the hallway. I'm not some acquaintance or a distant guest. I'm your daughter. She furrowed her brow, then gave a tight smile. Emily, it's not that I don't value you. It's just there were limited seats inside. I had to prioritize people who are closer. I stood still. What did you just say? Closer to Ashley, she said quickly. Aunt Patty, her best friend from college, the people who were there when she was sick. You've always been independent. I never had to worry about you. I let out a laugh so soft it surprised even me. You never had to worry about me, and you think that justifies treating me like I don't exist. Ashley jumped in her voice, syrupy. Emily, stop it. Mom didn't mean it like that. You're overreacting. You should be grateful you were even invited. That line cut deep. I turned to Mom, looking at her like I was seeing her for the first time. Do you even realize how grateful sounds when you've made me feel like a stranger in my own family? She said nothing. No touch, no hug, no apology. A deep voice came from my left. It's just a seat, Emily. It was my father, Charles. He stood there with a glass in his hand, eyes fixed on the floor, still the same avoidance like always. I turned to him, speaking slowly. I don't need you to defend me, but the least you could do is look me in the eye when you speak. He looked up, confusion flickering briefly before fading. Ashley shrugged like I was a stubborn child ruining the adults' party. If you're that unhappy, you can just leave. I looked at the three of them, these people I once called family, and suddenly realized maybe Ashley was right. I tightened my grip on my purse and took a deep breath. Something inside me cracked, not from weakness, but from clarity. If they had decided I didn't belong, then I wouldn't try anymore. And what was about to happen would make sure they never forgot this night. I hurried down the plush-carpeted hallway, my heels sinking into its muffled embrace. Behind me, the banquet hall buzzed with cheerful music, the clink of glasses and bursts of laughter, but it felt like a distant world, one I'd never truly belonged to. Pausing in a quiet corner, I gripped my purse strap, anchoring myself against the swirl of memories. Ashley's mocking smirk, Mom's careless headshake, Dad's detached silence. They spun in my mind like a fractured tune. Then a memory sliced through vivid as if it were yesterday. 3 years ago, I'd gone home for Thanksgiving, a rare moment without Ashley, who was off in Portugal with her latest boyfriend. Our Albany house felt unusually still. No loud chatter, no trace of her cloying perfume. Mom asked me to fetch family photos from my old room for a memory album. I agreed, grateful for a task that felt like it mattered, like I mattered. My room was untouched by time. The small bed by the window, the worn bookshelf, the high school photos, mostly of me alone. I found the photo box in a drawer, but my gaze drifted to Mom's vanity and its small drawer. Something pulled me to open it. Inside was a light brown leather notebook, its pages filled with Mom's careful, elegant handwriting. I flipped it open, curious until the first lines stopped me cold. The day Ashley started kindergarten, she didn't cry. She waved goodbye and ran into class. Bold as a little queen, I turned the page. Ashley loves my Thursday baked pasta. Ashley used to fear thunder, but now she's fearless. Ashley's favorite gift was the nurse outfit I gave her at 8. Page after page, it was Ashley, always Ashley. A private chronicle of her life, etched with love. Desperate, I searched for myself, scanning every line for a trace of Emily, but there was nothing, not a word, not even my name. My knuckles whitened as I gripped the notebook. Mom walked in. I sat frozen on the floor, the notebook splayed open. You wrote all this for Ashley. My voice was quiet, edged with ice. She glanced at it, her smile light dismissive. I wanted to make sure Ashley never felt forgotten. She's sensitive. My lips stung as I bit it, and me. Mom's gaze was steady. You've always been strong. You didn't need a book to be remembered. I nodded silent, but something inside me broke a piece of my childhood, my hope, my longing for her acknowledgement. That moment flooded back now, sharp and heavy in the opulent hallway of Ashley's wedding. Nothing had changed. I was still Emily, the daughter left out of Mom's memory book, relegated to a corner at her sister's celebration. A chill crept through me, not from the air, but from the stark truth. I sank onto the bench by the window beside the coat rack exactly where they'd placed me. The name card in my hand with its gold script mocked my faint reflection in the glass. The wedding sparkled on twinkling lights, white blooms, Ashley's radiant smile in her lavish gown. But I sat here on the fringe of memory space and love. If this was where they thought I belonged, maybe they'd never known me at all. Yet, for the first time, I didn't feel sorrow. I felt ready to step out from the shadows they'd cast to face the world on my terms. I stayed on that bench, my heart caught between past and present, Ashley's taunts, Mom's indifference, they looped in my mind. Relentless. Emily, a low voice broke through, startling me. I looked up. Standing in front of me was Kevin Bennett, the groom of the day. He wore a tailored tux, his tie slightly loosened, his dark brown hair tousled as if he'd run his hands through it from stress. In his hand was a champagne flute. Kevin! I stood up, smoothed my dress, and nodded slightly. He looked at me, eyes narrowing slightly like he was trying to figure something out. Seeing you sitting here doesn't feel like you. I let out a soft laugh. Really? Because your family decided I'm not worthy of a seat in the main hall. He said nothing. A heavy silence settled between two people who barely knew each other yet, were sharing a strangely intimate moment. Emily, Kevin finally said, his voice lower. Can I ask you something? I met his gaze. Go ahead. He hesitated, his hand tightening slightly around the stem of the glass. Has Ashley ever said anything about me that seemed off to you? I tilted my head. Are you asking if I've heard her badmouth you? Not just that. He pulled his phone from his inner jacket pocket, looked down at the screen, then shook his head. It's just lately she's been different, controlling, secretive. There are things she doesn't want me to know, and I'm starting to realize something's not right. I paused. Ashley's harsh words during family gatherings still echoed in my mind, but I had never told anyone, partly because I didn't want to cause trouble, partly because I was so used to being dismissed. But something in Kevin's eyes made it impossible for me to stay silent this time. You might want to brace yourself, I said slowly, because I don't think you really know who Ashley is. He opened his mouth to respond, but another voice cut in, soft yet strangely powerful. And if you're still unsure, then maybe your mother can help make things clear. We both turned. Barbara Bennett. Kevin's mother stood at the end of the hallway, holding a phone, her eyes locked on her son. She was the kind of woman who made a room pause when she entered, not because she was loud, but because her presence demanded attention. Today, she wore an elegant navy gown, her platinum hair in a sleek bun, and her eyes sharp enough to see through anything. She walked closer and handed the phone to Kevin. Look. Kevin took it, his finger swiping across the screen. First, a furrowed brow, then a stunned expression. I saw his hand tremble slightly as he scrolled. I couldn't see the messages, but his expression changed from confusion to anger, then to something deeper, broken. Kevin's voice cracked. She told her best friend she was training me to be the perfect husband, said I was too predictable, and as long as she stayed sweet in front of you, this house would be hers. Barbara nodded. There are also messages to her stylist. Ashley said that a few months after the wedding, she'd find a way to make you dependent, and then everything will be mine. That's a direct quote. I looked at Kevin. His face had gone pale, his shoulders tense like he was bracing against an invisible weight. I can't believe this, he whispered. Mom, why do you have these messages? Barbara glanced at me, then answered. A friend of mine works at the studio Ashley hired her stylist from. They accidentally sent the backup file to my email when I rescheduled a fitting, and I read it. Kevin sank into a chair, still gripping the phone. The air around us felt frozen. I sat beside him, saying nothing. Part of me hurt for him, but another part knew this was the moment when buried truths finally came to light. Barbara stood there silent for a few seconds, then said gently, Emily, Thank you for not turning away. I gave a small nod. I didn't need thanks. I just wanted the truth not to stay buried. And from here on out, I knew this wedding would no longer go the way they had planned, and Ashley would no longer control everything the way she thought she could. The air in the private conference room on the resort's second floor felt heavy. No one spoke when the door closed behind us, only the hum of the AC and the faint breeze slipping through a slightly open window. Kevin sat at the head of the table, his eyes blank. Barbara stood behind him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder like the only anchor left. I sat slightly to the right, hands in my lap, trying to stay composed, even though my heart pounded so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. The door opened again. Ashley walked in with my mother, Linda. Mom looked confused, but Ashley didn't. She held on to her usual air of confidence, only now there was a flicker of caution in her eyes. "What's going on here?" Ashley asked, her voice slightly high-pitched, as if she was trying to regain control. "Why are you all pulling people out of the wedding?" Kevin stood up, and the look in his eyes was no longer shock. It was a cold, clear resolve. He pulled a white envelope from the pocket of his suit jacket and placed it firmly on the table. "You know what this is?" Ashley stared at the envelope, saying nothing. "Petition to annul the marriage?" he said, his voice unwavering. "And in case you care, I've already signed it." The room fell silent. My mother gasped, her hand covering her mouth. Ashley stepped back, her lips pressed tightly together. "You are joking, right?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Barbara spoke up, her tone sharp as a blade. "We read all of your messages, Ashley. Every word you said about Kevin, about me, about this family. There's no denying any of it." "I didn't," Ashley started, but Kevin cut her off, and for the first time, his voice carried both hurt and fury. "You called my mother a rich old woman who only knows how to write checks. You told your friend you'd have it all under control 6 months after the wedding. You called me too easy to manipulate, just pretend to be fragile, and you get anything you want. Want me to quote more?" Ashley froze. I looked at my mom. She stood still, her face pale as if she was seeing her daughter's true self for the first time. "Those were jokes," Ashley said, her voice a mess. "Messages between friends, not serious." Barbara gave a short, bitter laugh. "And what about the divorce consultation you filed last month? Was that a joke too?" That's when I saw my father, Charles, enter the room, his expression heavy. I didn't know who had called him, but his presence seemed to make the room sink deeper into tense silence. "Is this true?" he asked, looking straight at Ashley. Ashley didn't respond. Charles turned to my mother. "Did you know about this?" Mom shook her head weakly. I didn't think Ashley could do something like this." "You never think," he said slowly. "You've never looked at what's really going on." Then he turned toward me, and for the first time in many years, he didn't avoid my eyes. "Emily," he said, "I'm sorry." Both Mom and I were stunned. I had never heard him say sorry, especially not to me. "I've been silent for too long, let everything veer off course," he went on. "And I know you were right about Ashley, about everything. I didn't know how to react. Part of me had grown so used to being overlooked that this recognition left me breathless." Ashley snapped out of it. "You're taking her side," she shouted, voice rising. "Your daughter, the one you've always loved, is being turned on by her entire family over a few dumb texts." Kevin gripped the edge of the table. "Don't call them dumb texts, Ashley. That's who you really are." "You don't understand," Ashley shouted, her voice trembling. "I love you. I just didn't want to lose the chance to build a stable life." "What's wrong with that?" Barbara raised an eyebrow. "Is that what love looks like? Planning a divorce before the wedding even starts?" "She's lying." Ashley spun toward me, her eyes burning. "This is all your fault. If you weren't so jealous, if you didn't poison Mom against me today, wouldn't be ruined." I took a deep breath, staying calm. "Ashley, you did this to yourself. Don't blame anyone else." "You've always been the outsider in this family," Ashley screamed, "always pretending to be the good one just to make Mom feel guilty. What do you want, to steal everything from me?" "No," I said, my voice quiet but clear. "I just want the truth to be seen." My mother stepped forward then. She looked at Ashley for a long time, confused, hurt, and finally broken. "Ashley," she said softly, I can't defend you anymore. Ashley stood frozen. Her lips moved like she wanted to say something, but no words could fix anything now. She turned toward me, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear in her. Not fear of being caught, fear because she realized no one was standing by her. This time, Ashley stood there in the dead quiet room, breathing hard, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. The carefully applied makeup from the morning was now smudged around her eyes. The pristine white wedding gown that had wowed everyone just hours ago now looked tight, burdensome. Stripped of the elegance she had imagined for her big day, she whipped her head toward me, her eyes darkening. "You always wanted to take me down," Ashley hissed, her voice cracking. "You never let me have one peaceful moment, did you?" I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say, but Ashley didn't need a reply. She charged toward me, eyes blazing, her footsteps echoing against the glossy tile floor. I didn't move. I wasn't afraid. And then, in that exact moment, a steady arm slid between us. It was Barbara. "That's enough," she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was sharp as steel. Ashley froze, stunned. "Get out of my way. You've caused enough chaos," Barbara replied firmly. "If I let you do one more foolish thing, that would be on me," Ashley panted, eyes darting around the room as if looking for an escape or someone still on her side. But no one spoke. No one stepped forward. Kevin leaned against the table, expression unreadable. My father had his head bowed, brow furrowed like he'd just accepted a bitter truth. And my mother, the one who once excused every little mistake Ashley made, stood frozen, clutching her purse strap, eyes rimmed with red. Then Ashley pushed past Barbara, heels clattering against the floor as she stormed out of the room, her long trains sweeping behind her through the hallway. I thought she would vanish behind the door, but no. She shoved open the main doors leading back to the reception hall, where soft music still played, where hundreds of guests were laughing, clinking glasses, and posing for photos against a backdrop of pristine white flowers. And when Ashley appeared, breath-ragged hair, disheveled eyes, wild, everything stopped. The music faded, heads turned, a murmur rose, curious, stunned, then shocked. The rest of us from the conference room followed behind her. No one tried to stop her. No one wanted to. Ashley stood at the center of the reception hall. What was supposed to be the most beautiful moment of her life was now becoming the stage for the downfall of a self-crowned queen. "You think you can humiliate me like this?" Ashley screamed, her voice echoing through the rows of banquet tables and shimmering chandeliers. "I gave everything for today, months of planning, picking out every single detail, and now over a few messages, a few meaningless words, you're going to destroy me." No one answered. Kevin stepped forward, his gaze steady and unblinking. "No one destroyed you, Ashley. You did that yourself." She shook her head wildly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You love me, Kevin. I did everything for our future." Barbara stepped forward, slow but deliberate. She faced Ashley, her voice chillingly calm. "I once hoped you'd be part of this family, but you never wanted to be a Bennett. You only wanted what we had." A quiet "oh" rippled through the crowd like a wave. People were beginning to understand. Some guests exchanged glances. A few set their glasses down, their eyes heavy with realization. Ashley glanced around, breath uneven. "She made all of this up," she shouted, pointing directly at me. "Emily's always been jealous of me, always trying to drag me down. She spent her whole life in the background, and now she wants to pull me down with her." I stepped forward, calm and steady, my voice just loud enough to be heard. "I don't need to drag anyone down. The truth carries its own weight." Ashley went silent. The tension was tight as wire. All eyes were on her. Even those who had once cheered her on admired her. Now just stood there in silence. She turned to Kevin, clinging to a final shred of hope. You can't leave me. I'm your wife. We made vows." Kevin pulled the same white envelope from his jacket pocket, the one he'd come prepared with. He held it up in front of Ashley. "This is the annulment contract," he said slowly, his voice calm and cold, and I signed it. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. Barbara gently placed a hand on her son's shoulder. "Let's go, Kevin." As they turned and walked away, Ashley stood alone, surrounded by chandeliers and glittering gowns. She had once been the center, the star built on control and appearances. Now it had all crumbled right in front of everyone. A week after Ashley's wedding, I woke in my quiet Boston apartment. No wilting bouquets, no faint violin strains, no hushed judgments lingered, just me and the stillness. My phone hummed on the nightstand, Mom's name glowed on the screen. Her 10th call in 3 days. I let it pass like the others I'd heard enough in that sterile conference room in the glittering reception hall across years of silent endurance. I didn't need her rehearsed remorse or a fleeting, hollow embrace. I was done with their charade of a flawless family. That afternoon, as coffee dripped into my mug, a text from Mom flickered across my screen. "I know you're hurt. I can't undo what's done, but let's have dinner. Just us." I stared at her words, unblinking. The old me, younger, softer, would have caved instantly. I'd have slipped into a pressed dress, arrived early, flashed a practiced smile and steered the talk to safe, shallow waters, clinging to a fragile hope for her warmth, for words like, "I'm proud of you." But that girl was gone. Faded like an old photograph. I set the phone down. No reply, no rage, just a calm release. That evening, I wandered along the Charles River. Tiny lights swayed from the railings, their glow dancing on the water's surface. The sharp autumn air carried the scent of damp leaves and the soft chatter of strangers passing by. On a cold stone bench, I pulled a worn photo from my wallet, a Christmas snapshot from when I was 16. Ashley beamed in the center, her red dress vibrant, her smile wide. Mom sat beside her hand, resting on Ashley's shoulder, radiating pride. I stood to the side, half obscured by the Christmas tree's shadow. I studied the image, then folded it carefully and slipped it back into my bag. I didn't need to wedge myself into a frame that never held space for me. My phone buzzed again. "Dad, Charles," I answered. Not out of want, but because he rarely called unless it was serious. "Emily," he began, his voice gravelly slower than usual. "You know, I'm no good with words." I stayed silent, listening. "That day when you spoke when your mother saw Ashley's true colors, I think she finally realized how alone you felt." A heavy pause hung between us. "Whether you forgive us or not. I was wrong. That won't fix it, but I need you to know." I shut my eyes. No tears. No ache, just a quiet calm. "Thank you, Dad," I murmured, "but I don't need apologies anymore. I need to be free." That night, I returned home and lifted the family photo album from its shelf. I didn't destroy it or rip it apart. I placed it in a box, locked it, and set it high on the wardrobe. A chapter had closed, and I didn't need to reread it. The next morning, I booked a trip to Maine, a dream I'd shelved for too long, tethered by family duties and unseen chains. This time, I chose myself. I didn't need their forgiveness or their approval. Most of all, I didn't need their love to feel whole. My worth wasn't tied to their gaze. It came from within, from how I saw myself. Family may be our roots, but it's not always our home. True family is built from those who see you, hear you, and don't demand you fight for a place at the table. Sometimes the bravest step is to walk away, not to flee, but to find who you are. Emily's journey reminds us that not every bond under one roof holds love or respect. Sometimes guarding your heart means releasing ties you once thought unbreakable. Growth isn't always about being embraced. It's about the moment you step forward, needing no one's regret. In life, choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's a quiet act of courage and liberation. What do you think of Emily's choices? Share your thoughts below and follow for more raw, real-life stories of family and self-discovery. Emily's story cuts deep, exposing the raw truth of what family can sometimes mean. It's painful to see her sidelined, dismissed by those who should have cherished her. Yet her choice to walk away feels like a powerful reclaiming of self. I admire her strength. Not the loud, confrontational kind, but the quiet resolve to stop begging for a place at a table that never had room for her. Her journey shows how family can be a source of hurt, not just love, and how recognizing that can set you free. The lesson here is stark but vital. Your worth isn't defined by those who fail to see you. Emily spent years hoping for her family's validation, only to realize their indifference wasn't her fault. It's a reminder that sometimes the hardest but most necessary step is to let go of toxic ties, even if they're blood. Choosing yourself over a broken family dynamic isn't betrayal, it's survival. Emily's decision to prioritize her own peace to book that trip to Maine shows that healing begins when you stop fighting for scraps of love and start building a life that honors you. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more real, raw stories like Emily's. Next week, we'll dive into another tale of family secrets that changed everything. What do you think of Emily's choice to walk away? Have you ever had to distance yourself from family to find peace? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone, and I'd love to hear your perspective. Let's keep this conversation going.